All right, hello everyone. This is Marc Sabatella from Mastering MuseScore, and welcome to the MuseScore Café. So this is my regular weekly series I do on Wednesdays where we talk about some aspect of making music using MuseScore. And usually there's some particular topic, some particular organizing theme to the session. And this is the third week of the month. So it'll be my kind of usual now. Yeah, sorry. Are you hearing the music? Yes, we're hearing the music. Okay, good. So this session is going to be all about, I'm just going to enter a score, and it's going to be a pretty simple score, a very simple score, in fact, but then I'm going to, do some things with it that maybe you would want to do to make it look better and so forth. So this is kind of in conjunction with what I'm doing in the Music Masterclass right now. Those of you who have been following that, most of you, I think, we're looking at reharmonization, harmony in general, because of the chord progression workshop I just did. And so these are some techniques that I think will be useful to those of you who are working on that kind of thing. So as always, the cafe is brought to you by the Mastering MuseScore School, and I have the link pinned up to the top, and that's where I have all my courses. Double and triple echo? What? There's echo? Working on that kind of thing. So I'm not hearing echo. So if someone else maybe confirm whether there's some sort of audio problem, but it seems okay when I'm listening on my phone. So someone might want to confirm for me if other people are hearing audio problems. But meanwhile, I'm just going to keep talking. So yes, pinned up to the top is the link to my courses where you can take the Mastering MuseScore complete online course where pretty much everything there is to know about MuseScore you can learn from there. All right, good. I'm glad that most people are having no problems. So there must be something going on your system, Frank, that I'm not sure what's going on, but something on your end to fiddle with. Maybe try restarting, refreshing the browser or whatever. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a folk song to enter. Now, in the chord progression workshop, I talked about taking a familiar song and reharmonizing it, and that's kind of been the challenge that I'm putting forth for people this month, to take like a familiar folk song. And when I say folk song, I mean I don't have a specific definition in mind, but a song that's familiar to you and the people in your culture. I mean, we all are living in different countries, as I see in the check-in here, and there's different songs that are familiar to all of us. And I figured it would be a nice way to sort of celebrate the music of our own cultures that maybe other people aren't as familiar with, and it would be a kind of a fun thing to do. Plus, by having it be a folk song as opposed to a pop song or something, it means you don't have to worry about copyright or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is I am going to audio is a bit low. Yes. If you mean the MuseScore volume, I actually turned it down lower than usual to be heard over it because I felt like it was too loud last time, but I was probably mistaken. But it'll be reset. It's reset now for the music going forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my brother Matthew's website, and we're going to grab a lead sheet off of there to work from. So I've mentioned him before and his project. It's I got to find the right page again now. Here it is. Okay, so his site is called Ballad of America, and it's dedicated to preserving American folk songs, and he's really interested in telling the history of the United States through song and through the songs that were popular at different eras that told the story of what was going on in that era and so forth. So there's songs about the Revolutionary War, songs about the Civil War, songs about the westward expansion, all sorts of different aspects of American history told through song. And this is the kind of thing that I'd love for people to be doing. Let's hear music that's part of your history from wherever you are. So Matthew has a whole series of articles and things here, and as part of it, he has some lead sheets to some songs. And what I'm going to do is grab one of them. And I think what I'm going to grab is Down in the Valley. Now, Down in the Valley is a song that's maybe familiar to more people, because some of the songs that he has on here are pretty obscure. Like they would have been well known in 1890, but aren't well known now. This one, I think most people today in the United States, well, people my age or older, maybe would know. I have no idea if you're, 13 years old right now, if you ever would have heard this song before. Down in the valley, valley so low. But the song predates the United States, right? It was imported from England, Ireland, Scotland area. The actual origin of the tune is, not necessarily known, and that's part of the I don't know, definition or part of the characterization of the kind of song that we're talking about here. So what it means is that there's no one definitive version of the song. And this is going to be relevant to what we're doing today. It means there's not one exact, like if you're working on a Beethoven sonata that you're trying to transcribe, well, then that you want to go with an actual published version. Now, there might be several different published versions, but you have a definitive or a small set of definitive versions. For a song like this, it's not so much the case that there's a definitive version or even a small set of definitive versions. It's just a song that was a song that's like just generally known, and you learn it. It's passed on by oral tradition. And one of the things about this song that's quite typical is it's not even fixed how long the phrases are. In other words, I'm gonna like do this song the way we see it. Down in the valley, valley so low. Hang your head over. So just what I sang there is a 7-bar phrase, essentially, starting from valley, valley so low, and then hang your head over. From the downbeat of kind of this dotted half note valley to the downbeat of over is 7 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you listen to people sing this, you'll hear all sorts of disagreement over whether valley so low comes in immediately after the first valley or whether there's an extra measure to round it off to 8 measures. You'll also hear disagreement over whether there's 2 empty measures before the hang your head over or whether there's only 1, and that would reduce it down to 6 measures. Everyone has a different way of feeling this song, and that's true of a lot of this kind of music. And yeah, it is now associated in America with kind of being a cowboy song, but as I said, I think it's believed to have come from Scotland. Or somewhere thereabouts. So the reason this is relevant is some of the things that you might normally do in setting up a song, a simple song. You might immediately just go in and put line breaks every 4 bars. Well, that's not necessarily what we're going to do here. I am going to go with Matthew's version that's got a 7-bar phrase, and we're just going to go with that. But we're going to want to realize that that's a little bit of a what would we say? An affectation. It's a specific version of this that says we're going to make it feel this way because it fits the finger picking pattern that he was imagining. So I'm going to get started here by just copying an image. I'm using a screen capture tool built into my computer to grab the image, and I'll capture that as an image. And now I'm going to jump over to MuseScore, and I'm going to create my new score. And so I almost never am going to start with hello, and MuseScore has frozen. All right, but everything else is working as far as I can tell. Is that because I'm still No, it's not because of that. I've just somehow frozen MuseScore. So that's fine. I'll just close it and reopen it here. Interesting. Now it doesn't even want to restart. So it's going to be one of those days, huh? Going to be one of those days. Yeah, we're not getting anything here. Let me restart Linux and see if restarting Linux makes it any happier. Sorry about this, but you know, it's just one of those things. So restart Linux. And once Linux is restarted, I should be able to restart MuseScore, hopefully. So what I'm going to do, what I was starting to say is that default empty score that MuseScore starts with, I typically don't use that. I mean, I'd use it for demonstrations occasionally, but I rarely use it for anything that I plan to save. So I'm going to create a new score, and it's down in, and so I used Control N. Let me, now that I restarted this, I need to also restart my screen, the keyboard thing. So down in the valley, and I'm just going to say traditional for composer, because, you know, that's as good as anything. Now, what I'm going to pick here for this is I think I'm going to pick the Grand Staff template. And I'm going to pick that just so I have the option of easily filling in bass notes and filling in my own accompaniment. I'm not going to actually necessarily do that. But that's I want to give myself that easy option. So I have a Grand Staff template here. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is, because I'm really just interested in entering notes, I'm going to close the palette and I'm going to close the inspector. And I'm going to go to the View menu and pick Documents Side by Side. And this splits my screen, and it allows me to do things like, let me just delete all this extra, delete all those empty measures here, delete this title. This is that empty score there. And I'm going to paste in that screen capture that I did. And I can then grab this image and make it bigger so that I can be looking at my original source material while I'm entering my music. So this side-by-side view works for me because I've got a relatively wide screen. Depending on what you're doing, you might find the documents stacked where the two views are on top of each other. That might be more comfortable for you to work in. All right, so now I'm going to start. I'm going to enter this. I'm going to use this key and time signature. Realistically, it could have been entered in 6/8 instead of 3/4. Pretty much anything that's in 3/4 could be 6/8, but I'm going to go with that. So I closed the palette, but that's okay. I don't need the palette to change the time signature. I'm going to press, I've selected the time signature here, and I'm going to press Shift T. Shift T opens the time signature master palette. And here's where you can create new time signatures. Like if you needed to have a 13/8 or whatever, some crazy time signature, this is where you could do it. So I told you, even though it's a simple song, we're going to see all sorts of things that, you know, are maybe not so simple and that maybe you all don't know about already. So even though where this song is simple, now you're seeing this facility, Shift T, to enter this thing where you can create your own time signatures. But all I want is the 3/4, so I'm just going to click the 3/4 there. Now I'm going to do the same for the key signature. I'll select this measure and then press Shift K. Now, to be honest, I don't know if I have to close the time signature one first. Nope, I didn't. Shift K brings up the key signature. window. And here also is where you can define custom key signatures if you're dealing with non-Western music. Right? All the Western key signatures, the ones that follow the circle of fifths, are present already. But there's key signatures that are used in Turkish music and other types of music that use standard notation but use non-circle of fifth based key signatures, or that use microtonal accidentals. And so that's all available to customize here. But again, I don't need that. I just need the G major key signature. So there's the start to my score, and now I can close this. So Anon, I'm not sure what you're asking when you say 3/4 time to your 4/4 time. Oh, maybe you're just observing that I hadn't fixed that yet, and I didn't see the comment, and it's behind, but that's okay. So now I have this started. Now another thing, so this first measure, down in the, oh, actually, I'm probably not in the right key. I feel like I'm slowly developing, not perfect pitch per se, but the ability to have to know pitch. And I haven't, G, I feel like that's a G. Nope, I'm not even close. So anyhow, every once in a while, I feel like I know what a note is, and I'm finding I'm right more than a 1/12 of the time, a lot more than a 1/12 of the time. But in any case, down in the, and then, okay, so I just entered a bunch of notes, right? And I did that really fast. Let's undo all that. I'm going to press Control Z to undo. And let's talk about what I did. I pressed 5 for quarter note, and then I typed a D, I think. And that, I don't remember if I did that or not, if I clicked it or what I did, but that's an octave too high, right? So Control down moves it down an octave. And now I can type my melody, and the melody, for the most part, will guess octaves correctly because it's always going to pick the closest note. So if I go down in the, and now for the dotted half note, 6 dot, 6 for half note dot. Belly. Now Matt didn't put in a dotted half for the G, so I'm going to go with his arrangement here. I'm going to change that to just 6 G, and then the rest 5 0 for the rest. This melody now goes back to quarter notes, da, da, dum, and then dotted half, 6 dot. Now those measure rests, I entered that quarter rest there in the third measure. I entered it directly. And that was, even though MuseScore had filled it in for me, I'm used to just entering things left to right. However, empty measures, I usually just cursor past them. So if I hit the cursor to move past that empty measure, I think I can use Control cursor to move a measure at a time, but whether you move a measure at a time or a note at a time in an empty measure, it's the same thing. Because the thing is, if I enter a whole rest, that's not the right thing. People confuse whole rests with measure rests, but they're not the same thing. If I try to enter a whole rest, 7 0, notice I can't put a whole rest in 3/4. A whole rest is 4 beats long. The measure rest is as long as the measure. So even in 2/4 or 3/4 or 5/4, 6/4, 6/8, doesn't matter what time signature you're in, the measure rest is this thing that looks like a whole rest. I'm going to leave note input mode, press escape here. It looks like a whole rest, but it's centered in the measure. A true whole rest, like let me enter one. Let me just create a new score. Let me just add a measure to this score over here. I think I'm entering new measures, but I don't see my new measures being entered, so I actually don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to go back to Down in the Valley. I think if I'm in my first score and press Control B, it should be adding a new measure, and yet I'm not seeing my new measure. Is it hidden behind? There it is. It's hidden behind my image. Silly me. All right, this score is in 4/4. And so if I enter a whole rest here, 7, 0. Now you can see the whole rest is actually left aligned in the measure. That's how you can tell the difference. So a whole rest is actually left aligned in the measure. That's exactly 4 beats long. A measure rest, so a whole rest is left aligned. A measure rest is centered. So the measure rests get filled in automatically. And then, so to enter a whole rest, it's just 7, 0. 7 for whole note, or if you prefer clicking, click the whole rest. Here, I'll do it over here. Let me move this some more. I'll go into note input mode here. I'll click the whole rest, and then I will right click to enter a rest. And that did it, right? So select the duration. The way you enter rests in general is select the duration and then 0 with the keyboard to enter a rest, or right click with the mouse to enter a rest. So a whole rest is just that, 7, or whole note followed by that. To enter a measure rest, you normally don't. That's why I just sort of skipped past it. However, MuseScore does have a shortcut for it. And it's a little scary to me to do this because Control-Delete is the shortcut to delete a whole measure, but Control-Shift-Delete will convert an empty measure into a measure rest. So here, when I tried to enter this, I tried to enter a whole rest into that 3/4 measure, and it gave me a dotted half rest followed by a quarter rest, because that's 4 beats. If I want to convert these two measures back into measure rests, I select them and then Control-Shift-Delete will convert them back to measure rests. And that will work even in multiple voices, because that's sometimes something you need to do if you're writing a piece with multiple voices and you've got notes in voice 1, but you need to enter a measure rest into voice 2. That'll come in handy. Like, let me just do that right now. I'm going to go into voice 1 and enter a note. And now I'm going to go back and switch to voice 2, Control-Alt-2. And now I want a measure rest to show that voice 2 is resting. I think I can do this in note input mode, but we're going to find out. Control-Shift-Delete. Yes, that entered the measure rest for me. So there you go. So that's a useful shortcut in multiple voice music. See, again, I told you there'd be some useful things, even though we're really dealing with some simple music here. It just keeps touching on things that are, things that not everyone figures out or realizes. And so as they come up, it gives me a chance to talk about them. All right, so what I'm going to do now is go back and just look at my my sample music here, and then I'm just going to hit escape over back in back on the left side here. And I think what's happening is right now I'm having a hard time selecting anything in that score because I didn't want to click in the score because I was still in note input mode and I didn't want to enter a note. But sometimes I just basically switched tabs in this side of the window, and that kicked me out of note input mode. So there's little tricks you can do to make sure your keyboard focus gets where you want. And it's all kind of a little bit trial and error for me sometimes, even after all these years. Anyhow, I now have this stuff I don't want, so I'm just going to delete it. I hit delete. Now, my keyboard doesn't have a physical delete key. It has a backspace key, very much like most Mac keyboards and at least some Windows keyboards. This is a Chromebook. So on my keyboard, I've actually defined a shortcut so I can use backspace as if it were delete. So I went to Edit, Preferences, Shortcuts, and then I searched for delete, and the delete command is normally a delete key. But since I don't have a physical delete key, normally to activate delete on a Chromebook or on a Mac, an actual delete, because delete and backspace are two different things, right? Backspace moves the cursor backwards while deleting. Delete leaves the cursor where it is while deleting. Two different functions in a word processor. So delete on a Chromebook or a Mac is usually FN plus backspace, or on a Chromebook, it's called the everything key. So it's the special modifier key plus backspace. I don't want to have to do that every time I delete. So I came here to Edit Preferences shortcut and defined my own shortcut for the delete key, so that for the delete command, so I can hit backspace and have it work as delete. So yeah, I made that. I made that so that I could not have to always press FN delete or FN backspace. So there's a question here about why this difference exists between a whole rest versus a measure rest. Well, a whole rest is always exactly 4 beats, and you need to have that. That needs to be a thing, because what if your time signature, say, is 7/4? If your time signature is 7/4, you can have 4 beats of rest and then still have notes after, right? 4 beats of rest, and then you still got 3 beats left. So there needs to be one symbol that means exactly 4 beats of rest. But there also needs to be a symbol that means that whole measure is empty. So in 7/4, there's a difference between, and not just 7/4, any time signature longer than 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, 8/8, doesn't really matter what it is. Well, not 8/8, that's the same as 4/4. But any time signature that's longer than 4/4, you can potentially have 4 beats of rest and also notes. Or you could have an empty measure. So there need to be different symbols for it. So the centered one means the whole measure is empty. The left aligned one means 4 beats of rest. So yeah, that's basically the story. So I'm going to come back to entering some notes here, and I'm going to keep monitoring the chat to see what other questions come. So Matt had 2 empty measures there, and now I'm going to go back to note input mode and type D, but then an octave lower. So control down, do, 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 and then dotted half, dum, and then 6, bum. And then this time I'm going to try pressing control right. That just moves me to the next measure. Control right moves me to the next measure, so that any rests that MuseScore automatically generated for me, now they're I can just use those, and I didn't have to enter that quarter rest manually like I actually did last time. It was already there, but I went ahead and entered it manually. This time I hit control right to just sort of accept that quarter rest. Now I'll continue. 5, do, 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 and then 6 dot G. Okay, so I have now entered the first line of music. At this point, a couple things. First, I want to save. I'm going to save this thing. So Control S to save, and I'll go to my cafe folder down in the valley. I want to save this thing now, so that if I get a crash again, it's not having to restore a file, and I don't have to worry about losing work or anything. That's about as long as I'd ever want to go without saving. So I've now entered that first phrase of music. The next phrase, I know, is essentially exactly the same thing, right? Hear the wind blow, love, hear the wind blow. I think I learned dear, right? Hear the wind blow, dear, hear the wind blow. That's another hallmark of these kinds of songs, is we all might learn them with slightly different lyrics. Hear the wind blow, love, hear the wind blow. Hang your head over, hear the wind blow. It's exactly the same melody as this. So I'm going to use that command that I talked about in the newsletter today. I'm going to select that whole phrase, including the right numbers of rests. There's 2 empty measures before the phrase starts over again. Oh, I might as well get the chord symbols in before I do that, right? So I'm going to put the chord symbols in. I'm going to select that first full measure. I'm debating whether that is really a pickup measure, and we're going to come back and talk about that, or whether the phrase really starts with the B. But in any case, he has the chord starting with the G. He's kind of thinking of this as a pickup, and I kind of do too. So let me just do that again. I selected the B, and then Control K, G. And now I'm going to tab. In chord symbol mode, tab moves you to the next measure. Semicolon moves you a beat at a time. Tab moves you a measure at a time. Space moves you a note at a time. There's all sorts of different shortcuts that work in chord symbol mode or in Roman numeral mode. So tab moves you a measure at a time, and that's what I'm going to use here because there's not a whole lot of chords, right? So I'm going to press tab again, and this is where it changes to D, and then do da da, and when we get to the C, it becomes D7, da 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 da, and then back to G. Bum, and I'll press escape. So Peter's asking, can I use the right arrow rather than control right? Yeah, so actually let me show you why I use control right. That's a good question. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to enter a half note, 6 G. And now I'm going to hit right. What happened? Nothing. Or it looks like nothing happened. But let me do that again. 6 G. Oops. 6 G. The G is selected still. You can tell because it's blue, right? The fact that it's selected that's why I know the up arrow and down arrow will affect that note. If I just hit right, it doesn't move the note input cursor. It doesn't move this blue rectangle. It only moves the selection. So instead of the G selected, the rest is selected. So I'm going to have to press right another time to get to the next measure. I'm going to have to press right arrow twice to get to the next measure. Or what if I had entered just a quarter note? If I entered a G quarter note, I'm going to have to press right 3 times. 1 to get to the quarter rest, again to get to the second quarter rest, and again to get to the next measure. I'm going to have to press right arrow several times. Whereas if I press 5G and use control right, it just takes me to the next measure right away. So when I remember it, that's a nice thing. So control right is like the equivalent. If you think of in a word processor, the right arrow usually moves the cursor a letter at a time. Control right usually moves a word at a time. Well, in MuseScore, right arrow moves a note at a time. Control right moves a measure at a time. So note, letter, measure, word is kind of the association we're making here. So yeah, there's another interesting thing that came up in the process here. So yeah, it's just a little optimization here. So I've entered all these notes here, but I don't need those notes, right? But now that I've entered my chord symbols, I can now just replace what's here, with a copy of what I entered already. So in the newsletter, I showed you the R command. And so let's show it in action here. I'm going to select. So I'll click the first measure and then shift click the last measure that I want to select, which is the second empty measure after the last note. Here's the last note. Then here's the first empty measure. There's the second empty measure. So I'm going to select all that, and notice it is measure 14, because yes, these are 7 measure phrases here. Gosh darn it. So I've selected that region. Now all I got to do is press R, and it makes a copy of that entire selection and places it after it. If I want another copy, I press R again. If I make another copy, I think when I press R, it'll actually add measures. Yeah, it actually added measures to make room for the new copy. But I don't need all that, so I'm going to undo. Control Z, Control Z. So I've now entered the music for this piece. Yeah. Now is when I want to think about I guess I'll put in the lyrics next. Let me save it, actually. I'm going to save it. And since Matthew is his professional name, but come on, I grew up with him. He was Matt. So Matthew's arrangement here uses these 7 measure phrases, and he has the lyrics associated with the notes, and then he has an extra verse below. In fact, let me switch windows here so you can see the extra. Where did I put them? All right, got to do it this way. Down in the valley. There it is. Okay, so down in the valley. So here's the additional verses down at the bottom, and I'll show you how to do that as well. But I'm going to first just enter the lyrics that we actually see here. So I have my right-hand window scrolled the way I want it, and now on my left-hand window, I'll just go ahead and Control L, down in the val dash lee, comma, space, val dash lee, so low, space, hang your head over, comma, space, hear the wind blow, period, space, hear the wind blow, comma, space, love, comma, hear the wind blow. Now I could use fancy copy and paste so I didn't have to type hear the wind blow twice, but I can type hear the wind blow way faster than I can get out of note and out of lyric mode and select what I want to copy and copy it. But I'm going to do it anyhow because now that I just said it, I'm going to just show how it can be done. So hear the wind blow, love, hear the wind blow, because the next line is here, hang your head over, hear the wind blow. Wait a minute, down in the wind, hear the wind blow, love, hear the wind blow, hang your head over. So it's the same lyric as the first verse. Hang your head over. So starting with hang, I'm going to click hang, and now I'm going to shift click blow. That selected all the lyrics starting from hang up to blow. And now I'm going to copy. And then I'm going to go to that same spot here and Control V. And now I've got hang your head over, hear the wind blow. So I now have my lyrics entered. I did use copy and paste, not for hear the wind, head the wind blow. Please, it's not head, it's here. So double click here. And I guess I'll just space to move. Hear the wind blow. Thank you. Thank you for fixing that. Did it automatically jump over the empty measures? Yes. When I pressed space, it went to the next note. So Jim, yes, I mentioned early on when I first did this that some versions use 6 measure phrases, some use 7, and some use 8. So Matthew has chosen to represent it as 7, and I'm going to go with that for now. So here's my 6 measure version. Down in the valley, hear the wind. Oh no, down in the valley, valley so low, hang your head over. So I just cut out one of the empty measures. An 8 measure phrase version would be down in the valley, valley so low. So I inserted an empty measure before valley, and that allows the distance from the dotted half here where the G chord is to the dotted half there where the D chord is. It allows that to become a 4 measure phrase. So some people choose to make this be 4 plus 4. Some people choose to make it be 3 plus 3. Matthew has chosen to make it be 3 plus 4, but everyone who does the song is going to be different, and that's basically going to be the case. So Joanne, you're asking about space, and I'm not positive what you're asking, but I do want to point something out about space. If I'm editing lyrics and I press space, it does move to the next note, and any existing lyrics stay. However, one thing you have to be careful about is hang your head. Let me zoom in a little more. Oh, if I press space right now, it's going to obliterate the hyphen. So I don't want to be in the habit of always using space when I'm editing existing lyrics, because it will obliterate the hyphen. So I'm going to press shift space to move backwards and then re-enter my hyphen. But yes, while you're entering notes, while you're entering lyrics, space will skip from note to note, skips over all the rests, because, that's how it goes. You don't normally put lyrics on rests. By the way, MuseScore does allow you to put a lyric on a rest. Let me enter some notes here. Doom, boom, bum, bum, rest, bum, 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 bum. Okay, so I've just entered some notes here. I'm going to enter some lyrics. G, space, A, space, B, space, C. When I press space, notice MuseScore is going to skip right over the rest and go on to the B, right? So it did exactly what I want. A, space, G. So space skips over the rest, exactly like you want. But If you want a lyric on that rest, you can have it. You'll have to do it manually. So select the rest and type Control L. And now you can type a lyric there. And it gets entered. So so there you go. So yes, you can put in a lyric on a rest, but not while you're entering lyrics. You kind of have to go back and add them individually. But while you're editing existing lyrics, be careful about space because it will obliterate any hyphens you already entered. All right, so I now have all my lyrics in. I'm going to proofread it real quick because I don't trust myself. Down in the valley, valley so low, hang your head over, hear the wind blow, love. Hear the wind blow, hang your head over, hear the wind blow. Okay, I've got the lyrics right. Now, I'm going to do a little proofreading on Matthew's arrangement here, or his representation of the lyrics. He doesn't have a punctuation mark after the word low here. That bothers me slightly. So down in the valley, valley so low. That is not a complete sentence, right? There's no verb. I'm going to insert a comma there. I feel like that comma wants to be there. And hang your head over doesn't start a new sentence, so it doesn't need to be capitalized, but it is pretty traditional to capitalize the first line of a lyric. If you think about writing the lyric in lines, like look at Matt's like, if you don't love me, love whom you please, but throw your arms round me, give my heart ease. So this start of each line is capitalized. The start of a line of lyric being capitalized is very traditional, right? Whether it starts a sentence or not. Now, down in the valley, if you don't love me, da 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 da. So that's how this would have been written. Down in the valley, valley so low is one line. The next line of lyrics starts, hang your head over. So it does start capitalized. But very often, when you do that, we also put punctuation, whether it's a comma or a semicolon or a period, at the end of the previous line. Here I'm putting on my editor's hat. And you'll notice that his representation of the lyric here doesn't have it either. And probably, that's reflective of some published version of this song. So I'm making a little editorial change here of just adding some missing punctuation because for some reason it does bother me to not see the punctuation before the next line. So that's me. It is not by any means required, but it's something that's like a sort of pet peeve thing of mine. So the same thing is going to happen in the second verse here. I'm going to add that comma there. It doesn't bother me to see the capitalization there because I understand it. But it doesn't bother me to see the capitalization. I understand it, but it does bother me a little bit to not see the punctuation. So I see there's a comment about 7-bar phrases in Haydn versus Mozart, and that's interesting. Yeah, you'll definitely find examples of 7-bar phrases in real music, whatever composed music that's notated one specific way. It's not super common, but you definitely do see it. But I would be interested to know which Haydn piece in particular you're thinking of. And I'll bet someone can come up with a Mozart example, but I would totally believe that Haydn does it more, or did it more. All right, so now I've got all the music and all the lyrics. So what I'm going to do is delete the rest to the end of the score. So the two empty measures are what's left over after that last word. So the two empty measures, and then I'm going to click this measure and Shift, Control, End. Selects to the end of the score. And if you don't have a physical end key on your keyboard, like mine does not have a physical end key, but FN plus right arrow is how you do end on any keyboard that doesn't have a physical end key. And actually, I've got like 3 computers I use regularly. None of them have physical end keys. They all do F. No, that's not true. One of them has a physical end key. Actually, I don't even remember now. I just use FN plus right because I'm so used to it now. So Control, Shift, and then End. which is FN plus right. That is the universal shortcut in every single app to mean select from here to end of score. Control plus end moves the cursor to the end of the score, and then when you add shift to it, it selects to end of score. So I select this measure, and then control shift end. And now I can use control delete to delete those measures. And now I can press save to save this thing. And the punctuation is, I don't know that it really adds anything exactly, but it helps you anticipate that while you're singing the word "hear the wind blow," that you've come to a break. Yes, you probably know you've come to a break because there's two empty measures there, but it's just an extra thing there to let you know that it's the end of the line, to know lyrically you've hit the end of a line, because it might cause you to want to breathe there. So there's all sorts of subtle things that punctuation does. It's by no means required in just to be able to sing, but to really understand what you're singing. Sometimes seeing the punctuation helps us parse what we're seeing, and we understand that the word low is not low hang, but valley so low. Yes, the melody helps you understand that too, but by seeing the punctuation and the capitalization, it helps solidify our sense of how these lyrics go. So yeah, that's sort of an editorial decision to make there. All right, so I am now going to take a look at this score here and decide how many systems I want. And what I think, given that we've got these 7 measure phrases, I think I'm going to go with 7 measures per system. So I'm going to select the last measure of each system, and I have to decide what that means. Does this hang your head start a new line, or is it the last measure of the first line? Right? Let's think about this. When we have odd number phrases and when we have pickups, this is going to be a tricky thing to consider. I kind of want to do what I'm about to do, but I think I'm not going to. I'm going to select that measure and hit enter, so that over starts the next da, 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 and then select this and hit enter again. When I do this, I get a 7 measure phrase here, 1, and I'm going to press Control Shift right arrow to kind of select a measure at a time, because Control arrow right just moves the cursor a measure at a time. Control Shift right arrow extends the selection, and that makes it easy for me to see what I'm doing as I'm selecting measures. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you can easily see it's a 7 measure phrase. So I kind of like this arrangement because I think of this over as the start of the phrase. I think of this hang your head as a pickup into this start of the phrase. So I kind of want to do this, but here's my fear. My first phrase now has that pickup on both ends of it, right? It's got the pickup into the first phrase, and the pickup into the next phrase. And that means my first phrase is actually 8 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the other phrases are 7 bars. And I feel like this bothers me at some level. If now I'm thinking I'm putting on not my singer's hat, because of course I'm not a singer, but my accompanist's hat, I want to understand the chord structure of the piece. And it really is 7 measures over and over again. So if we're using this version of things, right, it's either 6, 7, or 8, but it's the same over and over again. And I feel like having it be 8 measures for this first phrase and then 7 for the next 2, and then there's only going to be 6 left over for the last phrase, is actually going to kind of confuse the issue. So I feel like setting up this expectation that it's a 7 measure phrase right from the beginning is probably the smarter solution. This is a subjective thing, and I'm not going to defend this. I'm just going to say it's what I kind of feel. So I'm going to undo those couple of page breaks that I just did, and I'm just going to go in and make breaks every 7 bars. And so now that I know I'm going to make breaks every 7 bars, I can use the tool built into MuseScore to do that. I'm going to select the whole score, and then I'm going to go Format, Add Remove System Breaks, and it defaults to saying break systems every 4 measures because that's a super common thing, but I'm going to say every 7 measures. And now I've got breaks every 7 bars. So, yeah. I'll tell you what I really wanted. I really wanted down in the to be a system unto itself as the pickup, and then valley to start the next system. So I really wanted the first system to just be 1 measure. That's the logician in me, but I don't want to read the first system with only 1 measure. But the logical person in me wants to see that first system have only the pickup, and then everything after that be 7 measures. But here's what I can do to perhaps clarify this, and I'll take you guys' opinion on this. Often, now in classical music, you almost never see a double bar after a pickup, but in jazz, you very often do. And not just jazz, but any form of music in which we expect to cycle this, basically a song form. Any music in which it's a lead sheet basically, and we just see the melody, and then there's multiple verses, and we know we're just going to keep repeating that same melody for the multiple verses. Or in the jazz context, we're going to keep repeating that same chord progression for improvisation. In any setting like that, it's very common to mark the actual beginning of the form with a double bar. So I think I'm going to do that here. I'm going to reopen my my palette. So F9 reopens my palette, and I'm going to come to my bar measure. So I'm not in my my own workspace. My own workspace, I have a layout palette that has my double bars on it. But if I go to the bar lines palette in here, I can click the double bar, and that puts a double bar there to kind of mark this. So this gives me a little bit of the best of both worlds. And then I'm going to do the same. I'm not going to do it every 7 bars because this is all part of the same verse, right? That's all one verse. Now, here's the start of the second verse. So I'm going to put that double bar there. Again, I don't think everyone would agree with that assessment, but I feel like maybe it's going to be a good thing. So there you go. So yeah, I agree with the Singer assessment that you want the pickup to go with the verse. And in fact, what you'll often see in hymns is this taken to an extreme where, because in a hymn, the pickup might be only the last beat of a measure, right? You might have boo-da-dum, ba-dum, and so beat 4 or whatever, or boo-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum. The pickup might be a single beat, and you'll often see in hymns the measure split. So the first 2 beats are at the end of one system, and then the last beat of the measure is put onto the next system for exactly that reason. So yeah, I am kind of actually using a little bit of that mentality here, that I want the pickup to go with the melody, but really I'm only doing that only for the sake of that first measure is really the only reason I'm doing it. But it does end up being consistent here. So I've got a consistent 7 measures, and my pickups are with the thing, and I do have a double bar to help the accompanist know how to make sense of these 7-bar phrases, to understand that chord, that dotted half note is really the start of the thing. Because if you're trying to lay down an accompaniment of some kind, your accompaniment pattern starts on that measure, on valley, not on down. So so there you go. And yes, the Bach chorales, any sort of hymn arrangement, you'll often see the measures split. Now that is down to the editor. It's not like Bach himself necessarily did that. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But the editor who published it, maybe made that choice. So even though the song is super simple, and I could have entered this thing in like 2 minutes flat. We touched on so many different aspects of it that it still took some time, but I'm not done, right? I did mention that I wanted to show you how to enter these additional verses because this comes up pretty often. So, question about the pickup lasting a whole measure. Well, it does if you're an accompanist, because if you're an accompanist, you need to know whether that pickup measure is the start of the form or the end of the form, because it totally affects the rhythmic pattern, the finger picking pattern, the strum pattern, the arpeggiation pattern, everything about the pattern, the rhythmic pattern that you play, or if the piece is in a Latin style, how the clave fits it. I mean, there's all sorts of different aspects to rhythmic patterns that depend on knowing where the start of the phrase is. And so whether the pickup is 1 beat, 2 beats, 5 beats, it doesn't really matter. You want to know the start of the phrase so your accompaniment pattern can match it. All right, so I'm going to show you how to add these additional verses. This could be done, I think, since it's all just in one big long column like this, I could do it with just a text frame, but I want to give myself a little more flexibility. I want to give myself the flexibility of entering this in 2 columns. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to append a vertical frame. So I'm going to say add frames, append vertical frame. And now I have this vertical frame here where I can type some text. Now I can't just start typing text. MuseScore has this idea of, and now I no longer need this window over here. So I think I'm going to get rid of it. I don't need that document side by side because I'm going to get rid of it. So I'm going to get rid of it. I can't just type text because this is a vertical frame, but a text frame would limit me to that one column. A vertical frame does allow me to enter multiple columns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click the frame and then say Add Text. Now I can type my text, except I need to flip back over to this. If you don't love me, love who you please. If you don't love me, comma, love whom, did it say whom? You please. And I'm going to put the comma there. And then, but throw your arms round me, give my heart ease. That but doesn't, you need an extra note for the but that's fine. But throw your arms round, and round gets the apostrophe because it's a contraction for the word around. So it gets the apostrophe. Round me, comma, give my heart ease, period. And then give my heart ease, dear. Give my heart ease, comma. And then that same line again. And this time I am going to use copy paste because I can. Copy all that business, come down here, paste, and capitalize the T. So there is a column of lyric. Now I want to show you how to add a second column. So Dave, why not copy that text? Well, this is a PDF. I don't know that I can do that. If this was something, he actually does have this in MuseScore, so I could do that. But if you don't have that luxury, if you've got it already in text and you can copy and paste, great. In this case, I actually didn't. But yeah, looks like this PDF editor, this PDF viewer doesn't let me just copy the text. I don't know if this annotations does here or what, but in any case, doesn't matter. Yes, if you have it in copy and pastable format, more power to you. All right, so what I'm going to do now is second column. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click that frame again, and again say Add Text. And now I can start typing my second verse. And my second verse is down in the valley. I can start typing down in the valley, comma. Now you're looking at this going, how can you read that? I can't read that, but that's okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to get out of that for a moment by pressing escape once so that I'm still have it selected. I still have that second column selected, but I'm no longer in text input mode. Now I'm going to open the inspector. And I'm going to use the inspector to change the X offset of that text. And I'm just going to increase it to move it over. And somewhere, and now let me zoom out a little bit so I can eyeball where I want that second column to be. And because part of me loves round numbers, I think I'm going to go with 100 millimeters. There we go, 100 millimeters. That looks pretty good. So now I have a second column. Now I can go back in and edit this and type in my second column. So there you go. So I could do that. So I misspelled down, but that's fine. So anyhow, that's how you can have multiple columns. Now, realistically, because I put in 2 staves here, because I was anticipating maybe adding some accompaniment, and I might do that tomorrow in the master class, we'll see. Because I anticipated having that second staff, there probably isn't room for all those lyrics on this page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to append another frame. So you can't have one frame split between pages. At least you can't do it with any degree of control. So instead, I'm going to append. I'm going to say add frames, append vertical frame. And now I have another vertical frame here that I can put more text in on the second page. All right, 2 final things to show you before I wrap up here. One is, now that I've gone to a second page, I have to do this annoying thing because that we didn't think ahead when we designed this stuff. Notice the page number is kind of overlapping that frame. So if I try to add some text to this frame, add text, blah, 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 it overlaps that page number. That is because we didn't position that page number correctly. So here's how you're going to fix it. You're going to go to Format, Style, Text Styles, Header, and we are going to put in a negative Y offset to move that thing into the margin. There we go. That page number is now in the margin. So, and then I can use the same technique to create multiple columns here. So that moves the header out of your frame. Moves the header out of your frame. Last thing I wanted to show you is Roman numeral analysis, and it works really the same way as chord symbols. You click where you want it to go. The Roman numeral analysis typically goes below the bottom staff, and there's not a shortcut predefined for it. I do enough that I've defined my own shortcut for it, but add text Roman numeral analysis, and now I can type my Roman numerals. 1, and then same shortcuts. Tab, 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 5, tab, 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 5, 7, tab, 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 1, etc. Tab, tab, tab. Oh, and now that I've entered those Roman numerals, let's just copy and paste them. So I'll start with the 1, shift click to there. Oh, that selects. So one thing about this click and shift click thing, I think it may have selected the chord symbols also, but we're going to find out. I don't see them highlighted, but I suspect it might have. I'm going to press Control C. Now I'm going to come down here and try Control V. I was afraid it was going to give me 2 copies of the chord symbols, but it didn't. So I'm good. I'm done. I didn't enter all the lyrics, but as you all said, if you can find them online somewhere, you can paste them. So that's what I came here to show you. I showed you how to enter a very simple song, but in the process, we got to see a lot of interesting things. So hopefully people found it to be a useful exercise here and learned a thing or two along the way, perhaps. So I hope you've enjoyed this session of the MuseScore Café, in which I entered music to Down in the Valley, a very simple song. Oops, I guess I can't switch to it while the cafe is playing, so let's do that again. And I guess it starts over, so there you go. Hope you've enjoyed the session. Oh, and I missed some comments on here also, but so yes, there's lots of different ways I could have handled the lyrics for sure. I showed you a way, and maybe in other sessions we'll look at other ways. So meanwhile, I do want to talk again about the fact that my online course, if you check the link that's pinned to the top, you can get to my online course for learning MuseScore, the complete online course. You can also get my basic theory course, where you learn about scales and triads and things, or my harmony and chord progressions course, which is really in depth about how chord progressions work, and it's like the much more in-depth version of that free workshop I did a couple weeks ago. But by all means, I hope you all try your hand at doing some of these harmonizations, and like I want to take Down in the Valley now and work on my own interesting reharmonization for it, and maybe show you that tomorrow, and share this, and that's what I'll be talking about in the masterclass the next few weeks. So come join in the masterclass tomorrow and every Thursday, and to do that, you need the link. So if you haven't already, just join the community here. And so I'm going to come and paste this into the chat. And there you go. That's where you can join the community. And when you join the community, just be on that page and you'll get notification at this time tomorrow, same time tomorrow, and every Thursday, which is where we do the masterclass these days. So thanks everyone again for being here, and I will see you all next time. Okay, goodbye.